Hello, everyone. This is Bill Greene. I'm joined by Mark Givler for our weekly Gives in the Bank recruiting podcast here on BuckeyeScoop.com. Glad to have you with us tonight. We're going to change it up a little bit this week. Instead of going over the Ohio State recruiting class, we have a special guest with us tonight who's really going to give us a lot of insight into the world of 7-on-7 football and how important it has become in the recruiting world. We're joined tonight by Brett Goetz. He is, in my opinion, the guru or the godfather of 7-on-7 football. His team in Miami, Florida, known as South Florida Express, the most famous 7-on-7 team in America. And the growth of that industry, and it is an industry now, has been fantastic. And Brett has been a big part of that. So, Brett, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be part of this show.
For those of you who don't know, and that would be all of you, Brett is a wealth advisor for a Wall Street firm in Miami. And the 7-on-7 stuff is just kind of a labor of love with you, Brett. I mean, you get involved with these kids. And just tell us, how did you first get involved with 7-on-7 football when it was basically a Miami neighborhood thing and now it's a national thing? What was your first involvement?
Yeah, I've always been involved with charitable stuff in my community in Miami. I did a lot of stuff for kids. We did picnics and events for underprivileged kids. We did programs for kids that needed dental care that couldn't afford it. And we try to really push, and I do it the same thing with South Florida Express, is really try to push these kids to make sure they go to school. So we had programs where we did perfect attendance trophies and rewards for kids that came to, through the elementary and middle schools in Miami. We would give out awards to kids. And I've always been a huge sports fan, and I'm involved for 25 years, I've been involved with an organization, an Optimist International is a worldwide organization that does stuff for kids in the community. And I've been involved in the local chapter for a long time. And a lot of these Optimist programs also, besides doing things that I just mentioned, they also run sporting, activities and teams and leagues. And I'm been a huge sports fan and played a lot of sports my whole life. And I thought we ran a very successful tackle football program, my organization, many, many years ago. And I brought it back. I don't know how many years ago now, maybe 15, 20 years ago. I brought it back to the area of Miami where I ran it and got it back on its feet. And at the same time, a couple kids who played for me, one of them in particular, who ended up playing at Ohio State, Etienne Sabino, I was very close with him. I knew his family through our tackle football program. And Etienne used to come back and help us when he got a little bit older in high school. He used to come back and help with the little kids in the tackle football league. And, got to, being as close as I was with him, got to know a lot of his friends who were big-time players or prospects in the Miami area. And, Etienne's recruiting really, I remember sitting in the car with him one day, and he said to me, he says, Brett, I hope one day I could play. He was probably in 9th or 10th grade. He said, I hope one day I could play college football. And I said, you know what? You keep on the same path you're on now, I think you're going to have a really good shot. And about 6 months to a year later, I said, let's make some calls. His high school coach was a friend of mine, really nice guy. Wasn't really a go-getter with helping him get his name out there at the time. And I said, look, keep doing what you're doing. And he did. And he went to a lot of camps. And I was encouraging him to go to the camps. And then I started calling all these colleges, just like, of a dad or an uncle or whatever, saying, hey, I have this really good player like everybody else does. And they probably get a million calls like that. And what I would do is I said, look, I really want to help them. So I would call all these schools around the country. And, I would say, look, I have this kid. He's 6'3", 200 pounds, high school sophomore, really good kid, good academic kid, good football player. And as they, then I would follow up and send them tape. And then as he started going to these camps and really blowing up, I would send them all. I would email all these coaches. I would send them, all these stories. And so I really, so 18 just really, really blew up. And he would have all the college coaches call me. He didn't really like to deal with it too much. So he would say, just call Brett, he's a friend of the family, and, tell him what you have to tell him. So I got to know tons and tons of college coaches around the country. And at the same time, all these reporters. And,
right.
that
That's how we met.
these,
We met probably
exactly
2009, I believe we met, or 2010, somewhere around
No. It was
it
that, because 18 came out in 2008, so it was around 2007.
That's right. You're right. Wow.
So anyway, to wrap it up with how I got involved, I got to know all these reporters. One day I get a call, and I started helping some of his friends who were really good prospects. They said, "Hey, Brett, look what you did for 18. You got his name out. Can you make some calls for me?" And I knew they were good players. I said, "Okay, let me see what I could do." So I started doing that, and one day I get a call from a guy that was running, Darren Flannery, who runs the Pylon 7-on-7 tournaments now.
Still doing it today. Yeah, he's still involved
today. Yeah, and he had this idea of doing these 7-on-7 camps. So he had called me out of the blue. I didn't know who he was. He said, "Look," at the time he was working for scout.com or something.
Yes,
he said, "Look,
I
would love." Right. He said, "Look, I know a lot of people told me you know a lot of kids down there. Would you want to do a 7-on-7 team and play in a tournament that we're playing in Tampa?" Tampa's about 4 hours away from Miami. And I, without even hesitating, I said, "Of course I would." I said, "But what kind of team? Do you want a high school team?" They said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, what I would like to do is I'd like to do an all-star team. Can I take the best players down here and do that?" He said, "Whatever you want to do, that sounds good." So what happened was, I decided this is what I'm going to do. I called one of my good friends that I knew in the football world. I said, "Look, let's do this team. There's going to be a tournament in about 6 weeks in Tampa. Let's have a little tryout. Let's invite all the top kids that we know down here, and let's have a team." So what I did was I started calling all my college contacts, the college coaches, and I said, "Look, I need Geno Smith's number, or I need Stedman Bailey's number, or Vlad Emilian." So these are all the top names, Brandon McGee, and I would get all their numbers, and I would call them out of the blue and say, some of them I knew, some I didn't. I would tell them what I was planning on doing when I had this elite team in South Florida, and go up there and represent South Florida and play whoever we're going to play. Mostly it was going to be high school teams, but we were going to be an all-star team. So at the time, this is before social media, what happened was a reporter down here, you guys are always trying to, get a hold of these kids and whatever, and they're chase them down to get them. Well, a couple of these reporters found out that we were going to practice every Sunday for 4 weeks at a certain school, and they said, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable. We could go to this school and we could lock down every one of these kids we've been chasing around are going to be in one place between 1 and 4, and we could get all these kids covered." So, and I didn't know this was happening. So my first practice, I show up, and we have, there was a whole bunch of reporters there that found out, and they started writing about us. And then each week they're writing about us and writing about us, and it really blew up. So by the time we went to Tampa and played this tournament, everybody, kept hearing about this South Florida Express team. And, it was from there. And hey, funny thing is, we get there, we had a great team. I was a beginner with 7-on-7. I substituted in the championship game, Geno Smith. And by the way, we substituted for another great quarterback, Brandon Doughty, who went to Western Kentucky and was drafted by the Dolphins a couple of years ago. So, but he was young at the time. But we made a couple of mistakes in the championship game. Unfortunately, we lost. We lost to Aaron Murray's team. Aaron Murray was the quarterback of the other team, and they were loaded as well. And but we had, and from there, everybody, would call me. I got all these calls from people and say, "Hey, we read about your team. How do you do it? What did you do? Whatever." And, it wasn't rocket science. I said, "Look, the bottom line is people found out we're having these practices, and then all these writers showed up and started writing about us." So it really, the first year, and by the way, that year, the first practice was really like a tryout. And I invited about 20, 25 kids. We were planning on bringing 22 to 24 for the team. And we invited about 30 kids, and about 40 kids showed up. And then we took our 22 or 24 kids. And the following year, and again, this is before social media, the following year we have about 100 kids show up for tryouts. And then, and I think, Bill, you were at one of the first tryouts.
I think the second one. I was at the second one.
You were at the second one, right. And it just, that's what LaMarcus Joyner was on that team.
Yes.
It was a really good team. And all of a sudden, every year these tryouts would come out, and then, we ended up having 400 or 500 kids for a tryout, and it just really, really blew up. And again, once people started within, I would say, the second or third year of us doing it, everybody else around the country, and really, down here, oh my God, it just, so much talent down here and skill guys. So, there was another team that started, then another team, and another team. And it's funny, we have a group chat with my coaches on our team, and we'll put a screenshot of another tryout for another team that we never heard of. So there must be 50 teams down here. Whatever it is, it's crazy.
Wow.
But you know what? It's been, we just finished our 13th. We were cut short because of the virus, but we just finished our 13th year, our 13th team, and it's it gets better and better every year. Listen, I'm glad that there's teams around the country now, and it's become huge. It's
amazing.
It's amazing. It really
now,
it's yeah.
Yeah, let me stop you. Now, do you know offhand how many of your kids have gone on to play Division I football? How many? The number's staggering.
Yeah, there's a lot. Most of our guys are Division I players.
Yeah.
So if you take, like we right now, now we usually have two varsity teams. One is a little more advanced team. Then there's a second team. And then we have a 15U team. And that's how much 7-on-7 has blown up. It's gone from varsity level to 15U, to 14U, to 13U, to 12U. It's like every year there's another division of 7-on-7. But there's been, you take on the average, we added two teams. We used to have one team for the first few years, but we usually have 20-something kids a year that go Division I.
Right.
And
amazing.
NFL-wise, we've had, oh, my God. Tons.
It's amazing. Now, because I remember the thing that really got me when I realized that South Florida Express had gone insane was a bowl game. And Brett, it probably was 5-6 years ago. It was Miami playing Louisville. And people on Twitter were actually calling it the Brett Bowl because you had so many kids on each team. It was unbelievable. You might have had 10 guys on each team.
Yeah,
and it was like,
lot.
Oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. Well, through that then, you became so well known. Your reputation is impeccable, and it's an industry where not everybody's reputation is impeccable. Let's call it the way it is.
Right.
So this is what led to your involvement with probably every big time college coach in America. These guys all call you, they all trust you, and when you look online, all the different fans blame you. The Florida people think you're a Miami fan. The Miami people think you're a Florida guy. Then you're an Alabama guy. Because you sent kids everywhere. But with Ohio State, let's just touch briefly on the kids you have sent to Ohio State. And you mentioned ATN. ATN's like the son you never had. You got a beautiful daughter. But, what? Just give us you kind of did talk about ATN, but I think the most important thing about him is how he has adjusted to life after football. And I know how important that is to you because not everybody's going to make it in the NFL. Not even, the Brett's kids don't even make it to the NFL. So tell us about ATN, what he's doing today, and how successfully he has transitioned to life after football.
Yeah, he's a great story because I can't tell you how many kids that I see after they played for us, they went to college, they played big-time football, they took a shot at the NFL, didn't work out, or didn't have a shot at the NFL maybe, and I see them, what are you doing? I don't know, and again, I've gotten involved with this. I love sports, but when I can give back teaching kids life lessons or life skills, um, I love that part of it. I'm not an X and O football guy, but I can put things together, which I have with this, and make deals happen. We have Adidas as our sponsor, and put that together. But look, I really, really, I can't tell you, and it really, I'll tell you, this has been a big thing for me, that bothers me, is that, I think these colleges, and listen, I'm a diehard college football fan, and I don't even have a favorite team. I went to University of Florida. I grew up a University of Miami fan, going to games in the Orange Bowl. And now I take my daughter around to friends. We go to all different games around the country. But, I think these schools, for the most part, do a really bad job preparing these kids for life after football.
Right.
And,
right.
Look, those kids are going there for one reason. I mean, I hope it's more than one reason. And I try to tell these kids, you're not going there to get in the NFL. You're going there to continue football, but also get an education. And that should come first, because 98% of you are not going to make it, have a career in football. So I really, for the years I've been telling kids, look, when you go to these schools, and I have a speech with our kids every year. I said, when you go to Notre Dame or Florida or Miami or Ohio State, wherever you go, you guys have to learn to get out of the box. Stop being friends with just your teammates. And your friendship with your teammates are huge, obviously. Those are your lifelong friends. But you need to network, because all these people around you want something to do with you if you play football. Football is everything at these big schools. And I said, you guys have to learn how to network with people that are sitting around you, in the classroom, or at a bar on campus, or at a college party, or wherever you're at. You need to learn how to network. It's the most important thing I can tell these kids. And Etienne, who's actually a very bright kid.
Super smart. And what is he doing today specifically, Brett?
So what he did, and this is just Etienne, was, he took a shot at the NFL. He made it to the last cut with the Rams one year, and then once with the Giants. But he was one of those guys that knew to give. Some people don't know when to give up. And it's hard. You have this kid since you're a little kid and put on the helmet. You're going to play in the NFL. You get a shot at big time college football, and now you're like, you don't know what to do, and you're not going to give up. Well, Etienne realized after 2 cuts, he's just not gonna. He's not gonna make it to the NFL, and he took it in. Wasn't happy about it, but he gave it everything he can. And that's all you could do, right? And what he did was he got involved with He's so smart that he did not even join. He knew that the alumni base at Ohio State is very big down here, and there's an Ohio State Alumni Association down here that meets regularly. So he would go to the meetings and network, and they all kind of knew who he was because he played football. He was a captain his senior year under Urban Meyer there, and he got to know some people and networked there. And just like I always preach to these kids, and he ended up meeting a real estate developer, and a successful real estate developer in downtown Miami. And the guy says, look, you ever think about real estate? And he said, yeah, it's something that I have thought about. I don't have it in. I said, so the guy basically took him under his wing, and Etienne's been a great success.
Yes.
I mean, not only in the real estate market, he's done great, and he deals with, and he has a niche market. He deals with a lot of NFL players that respect him. Yeah. Wow. I mean, he's got a very nice clientele. The other thing, and then all of a sudden, I talked to him the other day, and he has another business that's been very successful. It's a moving transportation business that he came up, has a call center and everything. And I'm just like, I love to hear these stories, and I wish there was more of them, and getting back to what I was saying, I just wish these schools would do a better job with these kids. So that's what I feel when I get involved with the South Florida Express. And I really, my thing is, I'd love to see if I can help one kid, I did my job. And if we can help more than one, then, it's great.
You've helped more than one. So your guys that you have sent from SFE to Ohio State, Sabino, Travis Howard, Jamal Berry, Ryan Shazier, Jeremy Cash, and Torrance Gibson. So I don't want to talk about all of them, but dude, we both loved Jamal, and we thought Jamal Berry was going to be a star. And I know it's hard to keep you to one or two sentences here because you love to talk and you love to roll, but just tell us quickly about Jamal, man. And we both thought he was going to be a superstar.
Yeah. Jamal is an awesome kid. I mean, he was a kid and he made kid mistakes. And I've heard mixed stories about what happened. At the time, they needed some scholarships too. Don't forget
that was Urban first got there. Urban just arrived.
Exactly, they needed a few scholarships. He had a little legal issue, and they decided that they needed the scholarships. They're going to move on, and I will say Jamal was, first of all, an incredibly hard worker, incredible kid. Again, but he's a kid, and these kids make mistakes, and he made a couple of them, and it cost him. And I think he loved Ohio State, and you said I sent kids. The thing is, there's a kids that played under my program that went there. I never tell kids where to go,
right?
But Jamal was one of those kids. Yeah, yes. And by the way, Jamal was one story. Etienne and Travis played for Sonny Spielman.
Yeah,
Sonny
Dr. Kropp.
Spielman's Chris at Dr. Kropp High School. So in there, I think it was Etienne's sophomore year, Coach Spielman told Etienne he should go to Ohio State to go to their camp. So he went up there even before, before he was even a known kid. And he was the MVP as a sophomore in their linebacker group. And, so Spielman got him and Travis kind of in their head about Ohio State. And then, as Etienne got recruited, they happened to see Travis at a practice, and they said, "Wow, we're going to take him too. I mean, he's quite a talent." And Jamal had a really close family friend, a mentor to him, a guy by the name of Jason, and Jason was a diehard Buckeye fan, a diehard Tressel fan. So when Jamal had the opportunity, now I think I probably originally called Ohio State and said, "Look, here's a kid that's really likes your school. You should take a look at him." And he was a really highly recruited kid. They jumped on it, and he jumped on it as well. I mean, he loved it there. In fact, he's lived there off and on since since he's
So and then Ryan Shazier, I know Ryan is someone dear to you more than just a football player. I mean, and we actually were both talking on the phone the night he got hurt. We were talking and was like, "Holy crap! I hope he's okay." But what about what are your best thoughts on Ryan? And please keep this under 2 hours for us. I know you can go on and on about Ryan.
No, I can. Ryan's a really interesting story how he ended up at Ohio State. He was he was going to Florida, University of Florida, and he was committed there. And but he never, the truth is, it's not that he didn't like Urban. When Urban went there and he ended up going there, they're like, "Oh, he's not going to go there because Urban's there." It wasn't anything about Urban. He just wanted to get out of the state. But the reason he committed to Florida was because he wanted to. He just wanted to get away, but he wanted to commit to Florida because he knew it was important for his mom and his dad to go see him play. So he thought it was just really, he wanted to make them happy. Well, as soon as, the whole, when the whole thing happened with Tressel, Ryan, I know what happened. Luke Fickle was at the school. Now, Luke Fickle, one day he went to see Jeremy Cash because Cash was committed. And I'll never forget Luke Fickle. He called me after he went to see Jeremy, and he says, "Brett, I went to see Jeremy. We're excited to get him." He goes, "But man, there's another kid there that could play." And I said, "Shazier, right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You're not getting him." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "He's committed to Florida." He goes, "I kind of figured." I said, "Yeah, he's not going to flip. I know he's not going to flip." And Luke stayed on him, but it's like, this is a great story. But Luke was at the school when Urban got the job, right? It was when Urban got the job, right? I'm trying to think back, or
no, Urban. I think Urban
resigned.
was.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Urban stepped out.
He resigned from Florida. Yes.
So when that happened, Fickle jumped. Fickle was at the school when the news came out, and Fickle just
Wow.
jumped on it
Wow.
and said, "Look, just take a visit." And I'll never forget. So Ryan was down to when Ryan knew that his parents said, "Look, Ryan, go wherever you want. Don't do it for us." It was on from there. And Ryan went down. Ryan took a visit to LSU, and he was pretty much going to LSU. In
Right.
fact, I was kind of surprised that he ended up at Ohio State because he was going to cancel his trip to Ohio State. And his dad said, "Look, you committed to take the trip. You're going to do it. If you give your word, you have to stand by your word." So, which was great. So Ryan and his dad took the last official. They went to LSU. Ryan had it in his mind he was going to go to LSU. And I remember talking to you, Bill. He goes and there's a blizzard. I mean, it's like some crazy temperature in Ohio.
Right.
You got a South Florida kid in 5-degree weather. And I said to Bill, I said, "Bill, I said, they got no shot here. How is he going to go to Ohio State in 5 degrees? It's going to kill him." Anyway, he comes home that night, and I did not even know. I knew it was between the two schools, but they had a college. They had an announcement party for Ryan that I was invited to, and I go to this dinner, and Ryan announces for Ohio State. I said, "Oh my God,
Yep.
unbelievable!"
I
And
still
it was,
remember it
yeah,
because we actually covered that thing on scout.com. You were kind of texting me what was going on, and I was putting it on scout.com, and we had a couple hundred people following that thing all Friday night. I mean, it was insane. But, obviously Ryan, went through a horrible, horrible situation, but he's bouncing back physically, and he's doing great, and we're so happy.
Ryan's going to be fine. Listen, he had a dream, obviously, as a kid to get to the NFL. He got there. He made 2 Pro Bowls right away. And he wanted to be the greatest linebacker ever. And Ryan, when he puts his mind to something, he was going to do it. And he wanted to make the Hall of Fame. I mean, he had all these dreams, and he was on a really good path.
No doubt.
2 Pro Bowls
No
in his
doubt.
first 3 years. And I was actually going with my daughter the week after he got hurt. I was supposed to go and see them play. It was a Sunday night Pittsburgh Steelers game. And my daughter and I, because we live in South Florida, don't have any warm clothes. I said to Carly, I said, "Look, I want to watch Ryan play tonight, but before the game, let's run over to the mall and get some warm clothes so we're ready for next week."
Wow.
And I'm actually buying clothes, warm sweaters, whatever we were buying, and my phone is like going crazy. And my daughter said, "Dad, somebody keeps trying to call you."
It was me. I kept calling. I was like,
"Yeah,
are you
right. You were one of them. You were one of like 10 people." And I was like, and finally, I answer, maybe it was to you or something. I said, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Ryan just got really hurt." I'm like, "What?" Hey, listen, you hear guys get hurt all the time. But, to that extent, it's just, it was terrible. And I'm so close to the family, but really couldn't get any really good reports. They kept it very, very quiet for a lot of reasons. And, I was sick about it. And,
I think our info then, the info we were getting then, like within 24 hours, came from Fickle because the injury happened in Cincinnati, and he was in a Cincinnati hospital, and Luke was kind of telling us what was going on.
Yes, we were texting him, and I knew Fickle would get over there right away. And Ryan and I are really close. We talk all the time. He's a smart kid. Just like Bino, I thought Ryan, I went to Pittsburgh to see him one time, and I came back and I said, "Man, I'm doing something wrong with and I have I think I have a pretty successful business." I came back, I said, "Man, I'm doing something wrong." I said, because I was just around Ryan Shazier, and he's the greatest networker I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I was telling this to a guy I work with. He said, "What do you mean?" I said, I just sat and watched things that he did that no other people are going to know to do at his age. Not being in the business world, but being in the football world, he was unbelievable. So he was a great. I mean, he was at a Pittsburgh. He made. I guess he had a really big game with the Steelers one day, and that night he goes to a Penguins game, and he's sitting on the ice or right by the ice there, and the cameras go on him, and everyone goes nuts in the arena there, and they were everyone was bothering him. So the owner sent security or somebody to go get him and his wife to come up in the owner's booth. And Ryan told me the story. He said, I went up there, and he says, I knew everybody in that booth was somebody important.
Wow.
And he said, I didn't watch the game. I talked to every single person in there. And he became one of the people in there was the GM of the Penguins, who he became really close with, and still is very close with him. Another story about Ryan, he told me when he would get invited to like a Super Bowl event, by a sponsor or a Pepsi or whoever it was, he would research and ask them who's going to be there. So he would try to understand who the crowd is. And he said, most athletes, they'll show up late, they'll leave early, they don't care. He said, Ryan would always show up on time, and he goes, I would always stay afterwards. And people were shocked. I would go up to people and introduce myself. They knew who I was, but he said I would always make sure that I made people feel good and got to know everybody in that crowd. So Ryan he's going to be okay. Obviously, good. Physically, not going to play, but
getting better
be
though.
Okay
I mean,
in life.
Really doing well to live a normal life, play with his kids and that stuff. Hey, I did want to switch gears on you, and I have told the Buckeye, people that have followed me from Scout to 24/7 to Buckeye Scoop, I have told them about the talent that Torrance Gibson possessed. And you had Torrance from, when he was just a baby, and you watched him grow up. I mean, tell us, what kind of talent would he have had as a wide receiver? Where's Torrance fit in with the most talented receivers you've ever seen?
Oh, he had physically insane. I remember it was our junior year. We had all these superstar guys on our team, especially on the offense, like ridiculous players, all Division I high players on that team. And it was a summer tournament at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. And I remember saying to one of my coaches, I said, everybody shows up that's supposed to show up for this trip. We're going to win this tournament. And Torrance was a kid that, he was a quarterback in high school, just an amazing athlete, 6'4", just 210 pounds. I mean, chiseled. I mean, he could do everything. And I wanted him to play receiver for us. So I didn't really need him a quarterback because he was more of a running quarterback. We had a good quarterback at the time. But I said, love him to play receiver. He's a big target. But I didn't know how good of a receiver he was really going to be until he gets out there. And I'm just like, wow. And I'll tell you, at the IMG thing, a very big national reporter came up to me and said, Brett, the best, how did he put it? It was the best guy you have on that team. He said the best pro prospect that you have by a mile is Torrance Gibson at receiver. And he said, if he would be coached up and had if he really was able to stay there and get coached up, oh my God. I mean, he was a Megatron type of guy. I mean, just so natural, so fast, so big. It's sad. But it happens.
And then the opposite of Torrance would be Mike Thomas, who I saw Mike at the Under Armour All-American game, and I will swear to this day that he did not deserve to be in that game, and his uncle got him in the game, Keyshawn Johnson. Right. You had competed against him in 7-on-7. You didn't even think he started for his team, right? He hardly played. They had Anthony Thomas, the Black Mamba, and Mike Thomas was nobody, correct?
No, he was nobody. He was on. So we played in a tournament in Alabama. It was a national championship tournament, and we played a Louisiana team and beat them with some real great players on that team. And then we get to the championship game, and we end up playing Keyshawn Johnson's team. And the night before, we sat with Keyshawn's team for dinner that night, and a lot of trash talking and fun trash talking. At the end of the night, we said, "Hey, I hope we can play each other in a championship. That would be a great way to end this weekend." And sure enough, we ended up playing them in the championship. And we never forget, Keyshawn was quoted as saying, if we lose the one game out here, we're walking home. We don't win this thing. So, of course, we made sure he remembered that quote. But he, in the championship game, we played them, and they had the Mamba was the big name, and I can't remember. They had another big receiver that went to USC. It was a 5-star receiver. Those were the two guys that we knew that we had to lock down. And Michael, he didn't do anything. Nobody knew who he was. He didn't do anything, and I don't think he even played that game. And I got to know him right after. I think it was it was actually at the All-American game week,
right?
Because I went to hang out. Under Armour invited me there, and I happened to spend time with Ryan that week. And Ryan, I guess all the Ohio State guys were together, and Michael Thomas was there, and I was like, man, this guy doesn't, he looks the part, but doesn't play the part. But you know what? I've talked to people like Mark Pantoni and stuff, and they said
go ahead and tell us what. Right, I wanted to get to that.
No, they said he was the
Pantoni
hardest
told you about
working guy. Yeah, I would say, man, I saw that kid in high school. I mean, he really was an average player. But, I remember Pantoni or some of the other coaches saying he was the hardest working guy. And obviously you see where it's got him now. I mean, he just put in time.
Wow.
Obviously having a guy like Keyshawn or people that maybe Keyshawn hangs with could definitely teach him, route running and, some real technical stuff. But, you got to be able to do it on the field. And and he is a great, obviously, I don't have to tell you guys.
Headed to the Hall of Fame. He's headed to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
A kid that got away that Ohio State wanted, and I mean, this broke some hearts. And a kid really well. Tell us about the Jordan Battle and the impact he could have had at Ohio State.
Jordan is insane. He played with us for 2 years, and it's funny. A lot of these kids, the first year they play with us, they're young, and you can see they're pretty good, but you got some older guys that are really elite. And I remember Jordan playing, and he was a pretty good player. Whatever, nothing, decent, but nothing special. And then comes back the following year, and it really wasn't really a well-known kid. And man, and I've enjoyed so much watching some of these kids. From one year to the next, unbelievable to watch the progress. And Jordan was just unbelievable the way he covers the field. He is really, really smart, incredible family. And when he committed to Ohio State, he was going to Ohio State.
Right.
I mean, it was a done deal. It was an absolute done deal. And I know his family, they're not the kind of people that are going to, flip 18 times and tell you they're going here and sign with somebody else. He was going to Ohio State. But when, rumors started circling about Urban, I know a lot of coaches were getting in his head. And when Urban did step down, when Coach Saban shows up on his helicopter on St. Thomas Aquinas practice field, well, he meant business. And I think that's what probably closed the deal. Plus Patrick Surtain, who we all know down here, he played with us, but him and the dad, they know the battles, so it probably helped as well. And if Urban never left, he would have been at Ohio State. And Battle had a great freshman year, and expect big things out of him in the next couple of years.
Wow! Now, through what you've done, Brett, I mean, you probably know every college coach in America. I would think every head coach, and you did have a relationship with all the Ohio State coaches. You're Urban, you met, back in the Florida days. Tress, Luke, you're still close with today. But the one guy I never forgot, you mentioned the guy, I mean, my God, it might have been 10 years ago. There was a young coach it might have been the first college coach you ever talked to. You said, this guy's got it. And I'm like, dude, I never even heard of that guy. And he'll probably be selling cars in another couple of years. But tell us that story about, one of the first college coaches you'd ever talk to and what you think of him then and what you think of him now.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I guess it was probably the first year that I ever did the 7-on-7. The guy that ran the tournament called me one day, and said, "Hey, there's a guy at Boston College, a coach, that I gave him your number. You have a lot of great players. They're looking for great players, also with great academics because it was Boston College." And he said, "Do you mind if he calls you?" I said, "No." Well, it was Ryan Day, and he was great. He was really one of the first coaches I ever really spoke to, and he was incredibly nice to speak to, very knowledgeable about the game. And, like I told you or ever, I said, this guy was great. And, I knew what kind of character he was and person he was. And, when he went to Ohio State and got and ended up getting the job, I think, wow, I mean, you have him and obviously a great coaching staff, but him and Mark Pantoni, and I know Mark back from University of Florida. I mean that you have those two guys together, and it's just the key to you're going to be successful, and obviously it's shown not only on the field this past year, but through recruiting. It's just insane.
I mean, do you think Ohio State with Ryan Day? I mean, you lose Urban Meyer, you're supposed to drop. I mean, do you think with Ryan Day that Ohio State can, on a yearly basis, compete with Clemson, Bama,
Yeah,
LSU?
I mean, yeah, I mean, listen, he's finishing. You have a top 3 class every year. Yeah, you're going to. I think, and I kind of saw this with Luke Fickell. You kind of, when you get a little bit of, successful coaches, like Fickell got a lot of stuff from Tressel, and then he goes and he gets a totally different person in every way, gets all this information about how to be successful with Urban Meyer, and it makes look at Luke Fickell, what he's done in Cincinnati. And I feel, with Ryan Day, remember he was with Chip Kelly, who had a very successful
Right.
stint with Oregon, and went on to coach the Eagles, and then Ryan steps up and has a year with Urban, and I mean, listen, first of all, it's Ohio State. You have Urban, you have Ryan Day, who is a great family man, a great human being, and you surround, with this great school, great coaches, and I listen. I can't say it enough. Mark Pantoni is, you keep Mark Pantoni, which was probably his best move, and Mark. Look at all the recruiting classes he had of Florida, and then he comes to Ohio
Right.
State, and look what he's done. I mean, it's unbelievable. He should be the highest paid recruiting guy in the country by far. I have no idea what he makes, but he's been as so. I think Ryan Day he was a genius, just keeping Mark Pantoni and letting that letting that train keep rolling. And again, you got Ohio State, a traditional blue blood football program with with a great coach that's learned a lot from the Chip Kellys and the Urban Meyers and whatever else. You're going to be successful, and I think. And by the way, I think he really proved in that champion, in the playoff last year, how great of a coach he was. I mean, listen, things changed in the second half. Yeah, he faced a great team. But, I mean, look at the coaching in that first half. I mean, he really had a great game plan. And a couple, that fumble that they said wasn't a fumble, a couple of things here and there kind of changed the game. But I think he really showed that he's a hell of a coach. And I think, hire Brian Hartline, who's a great receiver coach. And I think he's going to prove to be, a key to that success also.
Well, Brett, we probably held you longer than we told you we were going to, but I mean, this was pretty fascinating for me to kind of take a walk down memory lane. And it's, really a topic and really an inside look into college football that people don't ordinarily get. I mean, I appreciate your friendship, and you are, again, you are the most trustworthy individual in a business 7-on-7 that can be a little shady at times. And that's why the reputation you have among college coaches, speaks for itself. And if any of our listeners out there need any investment advice, financial advice, this is the top wealth advisor, not only the Godfather guru of 7-on-7 football, but I mean, his main business is as a wealth advisor. And, get in touch with me or get in touch with Brett on Twitter. He's SFE coach, and like I say, he can handle my money. He can handle my children, and whatever he wants to do, I trust him explicitly. And thanks again for joining us. And
Yeah,
we
no,
really appreciate having you on Buckeye Scoop.
Yeah, and I appreciate I appreciate those kind words, Bill. I appreciate our friendship, and we love for your followers. Follow us on Twitter at South Florida Express, South FL Express, or Instagram. I can't even remember our Instagram. I don't do the social media for us, but anyway, South Florida Express. But listen, I love being on. Anytime you need me, it's great. And and by the way, I give a shout out to this unbelievable business venture, this business scoop. I know a lot of you guys, and boy, I mean, you're talking about my all-star team. Wow, the all-star team that you guys have at Buckeye Scoop is unbelievable. So good luck with that. You're not going to need luck, but I will tell you, I'm just as impressed with your all-star team as you might be with mine. So good luck, guys, with that.
Thanks, Brett.
You're welcome. Good talking to you guys.